All right, so let's get started. Welcome everybody to our Trustworthy Data Science and AI seminar series. And this will be the last seminar in this fall semester. And today we're very excited to have Professor Ming Li from University of Waterloo to talk to us about human K-shot learning and consciousness. So Professor Li is kind of the research chair in bioinformatics and also a university professor at the University of Waterloo. He's also a fellow of Royal Society of Canada, ACM, and also the IEEE. He has won many awards in the past. For example, the Stacy Fellowship Award, which is very prestigious in Canada, and also the Kilam Fellowship, as well as the Kilam Prize in 2001 and 2010, respectively. So without further ado, please go ahead, the floor is yours.
Shall I start?
Sure. And also for the audience, if you have a question, feel free to kind of maybe write in the chat, and I'll help with moderation in the end. And I don't know, Professor Lee, if you prefer like in the middle for questions or at the end, either works.
I think it's fine. I mean, anybody who have questions, and we don't have a big audience, I guess. You can just ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Tianzheng and Jian, for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. I've been at Simon Fraser in the past. So this is my honor to be here again. So let us. The title of the talk is a theory of human-like K-shot learning. Well, let me get rid of this screen. Okay, so the modeling human K-shot learning is a major open problem in open question in AI. So the problem is actually not well defined. It's actually confusing. It's difficult. For example, there are 8 billion people on Earth, and whose algorithm are we going to model? So each one of us has a unique learning algorithm. So that's why we have different intelligence levels measured by these intelligence tests. Now, Herbert and the company published a paper said that, okay, we are going to measure, they looked at the over 1,000 objects, and they extracted 49 dimensions or features as we put it in AI. But is that all? Now, human learning does not really need very high accuracy, and as we all know that we specialize, right? I mean, so some people are very good at learning certain things. We look at different objects, learning concepts by different features. So and we communicate to the rest of the people. If one person wins a Nobel Prize, then the person invent certain scientific discovery, and this thing is communicated, and then everybody else learns. Okay, now we have deep learning. So deep learning, so it's parameter laden and data heavy and energy hungry. Well, human learning is different. Well, we don't have parameters. Nobody sets parameters. Well, I mean, if you really think that they are parameters in the neurons and connecting them the ways, maybe they are, and I don't know, subconscious parameters. And then we don't have much data. We see an apple, that's an apple, that's it, right? I mean, if mother tells you this is an apple, then this is an apple. We don't have to, we don't need repeated examples. We just need one example. And this is very efficient. It doesn't cost a lot of energy and so on, and we don't need much data. So therefore, the deep learning model really don't scale up to the human learning, K-shot learning. Well, then the problem, of course, is one of the major problems today in AI is what is K-shot learning and how do you model such a thing? How do you solve these kind of K-shot learning problems? Goal of today, I think first of all, I'm not going to propose a model, so that's not something I want to do. So I wish to derive a model from the first principles. So this way that we have a universal model that anybody for the 8 billion people, all these models will be a sub-model, will be approximating my model today. But also I need to make sure that the model that I propose today, well, not I propose today, I prove today, is actually usable. And if it's not usable, then certainly it's a waste of time. Well, it's not a waste of time, but it's not very nice. So it's nice to have something that can be used. Okay. So let's look at human learning. So the human learning, so this is in our framework. So I will allow you to have some unlabeled data. So when a child is growing up, so the baby actually sees different things. Not always labeled, right? I mean, if you learn an apple, before you are told this is an apple, you have already seen bananas, oranges, pineapples, or whatever, right? So I mean, but nobody has labeled those for you, and probably you have seen apples too, but nobody has labeled it for you. So I don't care. I just allow you to have some unlabeled data. Then you are given K labeled data. You are given a couple of apples. So then one more important thing is that each of us are born with one program, right? I mean, so there's one universal program that learns all. Well, sort of. So let's look at these learning activities going on. So this is a case of way, mother teaching the chicks to eat.
Their parents for up to 2 years. During this time, they have ample access to role models who are making and using tools and have the opportunity to use these tools themselves. This extended parenting time allows skills to be transmitted vertically, meaning from parent to offspring. The family.
We can pass this. So in nature, the crows are certainly one of the very smartest animals, and they actually learn to use tools, and the mother teaches kids. Okay, so let us try to extract some before I go on with a theory and the definition. So I need to emphasize a few sort of facts. So the K-shot learning is one of the main methods for human learning, right? So we don't daily need a lot of labeled examples to learn, right? I mean, so to survive all these animals and the human, we just need a few examples and learn right away. It is not a large data deep learning or transfer learning. By the way, I would like to exclude, well, certainly there are, I'm sure there are people nowadays, everybody knows about deep learning. So in deep learning, we have a GPT 3. So they claim the title of the paper, GPT-2 probably. The title of the paper is one-shot learning. So this is not something I want, right? I mean, so that's too much data. That's not fair. Also, I don't want to see transfer learning. Transfer learning is not something that we're interested in. I don't think human learning should be modeled with transfer learning. No, well, I don't mean that these kind of research are not important. They are important. It's just that it's not something I'm doing today. Okay. So then there are no other labeled data, and this is one program for all. And so we also don't want to model out of the blue. So we don't want to just say, oh, I propose this. No, I don't want to do this. So I want to say that this model will follow from some sort of a fundamental physics, physical laws. Also, I want this to be a unified general model for all. So I don't. So if I want to unify all these existing models too. If there are any, there are a lot of models proposed for K-sharp learning. For example, Brandon Lake and the company. So they proposed a Bayesian learning program type of model. So I want to make sure that these models are sort of approximating mine. So for example, in the beginning, I mentioned that there are 8 billion people. I wish to model all, not just one person. Let me simplify. So this is one-shot learning. So intuitively, what learning is in practice when we in our daily lives is this one-shot learning, right? If you see a bunch of frogs and your mother tells you that this is edible, then so are these. So all sort of different frogs. We are learning now, right? Each one of you in the audience, once I tell you that these are edible stuff, these are your lunch, right away everybody knows that all these other alternatives are lunch too. I mean, if you catch them. So that's essentially one-shot learning, right? I mean, so you see this, people tell you this is edible, and then you don't have to ask a question each time whether these guys are edible. They are all edible. I think, in fact, one of them is not edible. You make errors, right? I mean, so this one probably is a glass, porcelain. Anyways. Okay, so let me put forward a formal definition of K-sharp learning. Then start from here. We develop a theory. So my formal definition for K-sharp learning would be the following. So given a universe omega, so we wish to partition this into H concept classes. C curly C1 to C capital H, that given the following conditions, so there are n elements in or outside omega that are given you as unlabeled samples y1 to yn. So these are my unlabeled samples that you are allowed to see, but these probably are irrelevant, not relevant to the concept class omega that you are learning. Okay, then there are k labeled samples for each class ch. For small k, maybe usually k just think k as equals to 1. One example for each class. Then the learning algorithm must use some sort of a metric m. K-sharp learns given the above condition will learn the each concept ch. So you minimize the cost function that you make sure that each of the elements in the class is properly put into the class ch. You minimize this kind of a function condition on the unlabeled samples. So this is essentially, we are just saying that you have H classes, and you are given one example from each class, and then you properly classify these guys into the proper classes. So this is the basic definition that's used in also in Brandon Lake and usually other K-sharp learning definitions. So this is not something new that I make up. Okay, So if you okay, so notice one thing. So this M, this metric, is actually some sort of a personalized result of evolution. So it checks how similar an instance to its case samples in the class. Some people would say, well, I look at color only. I classify these objects according to color. Some people would say, well, I'm going to classify these guys according to height. So some people say, well, I'm going to look at the texture and all that stuff. So there are many ways of measuring how close this kind of a concept to this class center to your given example. Maybe it's just like when you learn a concept of fruits. Suppose omega is fruits. So you partition this into different fruit classes. So then you have given some sort of object. You have to classify whether this guy is similar to an apple or to a banana or to an orange. Okay. Okay, so one-shot learning, again, to simplify, right? So I want to make sure that everybody understands my definition. So one-shot learning would be that given one object from each class, given some unrelated samples, y1 to yn. So a person would use a unique sort of M, his own way of observing the universe or environment. Then we'll seek to minimize this objective function that each guy in the class is close to its center and on the condition of given some sort of unlabeled samples. So this XH is the labeled sample representative from each class. Well, certainly the difference is this M. So it's from the evolution. So this can be anything, right? I mean, so different people, different species have different ways of measuring similarity. And certainly this, I mentioned the Herbert and the company published in Nature that they think that there are highly reproducible 49 dimensions for 1,854 objects. So such metric is individualized. It does not have to be successful for all individuals in the species. So really, these kind of learning, we don't really require that we are always successful. So to guarantee the success of a species, we really just want one person to learn, right? So if one person to learn, we can communicate the rest to the rest of the group. For example, for a group of monkeys, if just one monkey discovers the tiger coming, then the monkey shouts, screams, then they can all run. So they just need one sentinel to accomplish this learning. Okay, now so that y1 to yn can be actually modeled by some deep neural network. So such things actually is a deep neural network, because this is something this is our pre-training, right? So you are allowed to do some pre-training on these unlabeled stuff. But after pre-training, so this is more closer to our deep learning definition now, right? I mean, so you can pre-train some stuff, but not much, right? I mean, so this GPT-3 is too much. So then you are allowed then you have to do the classification of these guys, one-shot learning. Okay. So that's essentially what I'm up to. I want to model this kind of a one-shot learning once for all. Now we need to understand what that M is. Well, this is first of all individualized, and the second, it is from evolution over long history for human. So we do. So let me call this cognition distance. So for using that, we recognize food and the enemy or whatever that's coming to us. So we certainly have a different distance as we know how to define a Euclidean distance, right? I mean, so this is how far the enemy is, how to chase a deer and how to catch a deer. However, what is this? I mean, how do you recognize a deer? How do you recognize food or I mean the danger, right? So this is something that we have to sort of carefully define what is this kind of cognition sort of a metric M. Well, I mean, what would be our cognitive distance M? That's a major problem. So now you cannot. So for example, if you use the traditional thinking, if you try to say, well, I'm going to use Euclidean distance or Hamming distance or added distance or Shannon entropy, mutual information, cross entropy, or whatever chaos divergence, whatever you use in deep learning, it's not going to work very well. I mean, so I mean, this distance, for example, just this simple picture kills a lot of these distances. I mean, this one is just one bit difference, and you just flip the bits, so they have a very large. Very large for some of these distances. Maybe for some other distances you can actually twist to measure these guys. But there are lots of different variations. Then very soon all these traditional things fail. Again, we mentioned that these people say, well, probably psychologists say that, well, let's take a look and look at all these features. Well, this is not going to work very well from my perspective. So the thing is that if you stay with the traditional distances, so we'll always be trapped, right? So there will be no end for enumerating all these dimensions, and you can enumerate no end. So then there's that there are 80 billion people to survey, and so you can take forever. And there are people who are dead too. They also had algorithms. Now, so what I propose today is that let's go back. We have to go back to the very basic laws of physics, and from there, let's discover something that's totally different from the tradition. Let's deviate from what we are customized, we're used to. Okay, so this is thermodynamics of computing. Let's deviate. Let's go back. Let's put K-shot learning to the background. Let's look at something interesting. Okay, so this is thermodynamics of computing. So this is a computer, right? What a computer does in the eyes of thermodynamics is that it's going to take some input and it's going to produce some output, and during this process, it dissipates heat, right? So that's all there is, a heat engine. So the question here is, does information processing cost any energy? So if you try to add A plus B, does it cost you energy? So this is very relevant to chip design as well. So is this kind of a more Moore's law, does it hold forever, right? Can you actually reduce the size and the energy and increase the speed, doubling and so on every 18 years? I think this is relevant. So von Neumann and Landauer says put forward the following law of thermodynamics. They're saying that processing one bit irreversibly if you reverse it. If the computing is not reversible, then it has to cost you 1 kT of energy. So K is Boltzmann constant, T is room temperature, like 15. So then certainly Landauer discovered that reversible computation is free. Why? So let's look at a reversible computation. So let's look at these slowly going elastic balls. So that comes from direction A and comes from direction B. So I mean, these two balls come here, they collide, they go this way, and they go this way. So if there are two of these balls coming, and you have A and B, otherwise you have something like B and not A. So therefore you have an AND gate. Creating a NOT gate is certainly very easy too. So just bounce the ball back. Now, okay. So physically, if you move these balls very slowly, and you can infinitely reduce the energy that as long as you make it very smooth, theoretically you don't have to cost any energy. You don't cost any friction, and you don't cost energy. So you have these kind of as long as you don't stop the balls, right? If you stop one of the balls, you put a brake there, then certainly it's not good. So then it causes the friction and the heat dissipation, and that's not free. It costs you energy. So this way, with these ballistic balls, we can now sort of billiard balls. We can sort of build a billiard ball computer. So in the beginning, you kick out the ball 1, 2, 3. You kick the balls into the computer. They follow some pattern. They kick about maybe tracks, so circuits, and so on. So then they can collide, and they run in this computer. So I mean, by the end, they come out. If you have this kind of a pattern, then the output would be 1, 0, 0, 0. With a ball is 1, no ball 0, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so they can observe the ball some ways, and so that's an independent process, right? Then you can sort of saying, okay, let's say bounce all the balls backward into the computer again. Remember, this is reversible. You cannot stop balls in the middle of the computer, because if you stop anybody, so this will be a reversible computation, and an irreversible computation. It will dissipate heat. As long as you don't stop any balls, you are okay. Okay, so now you are coming back with all the balls, and they appear like this, and you can retrieve these kind of kinetic energy into some other kind of energy, and then you have achieved free computing. But that's on the assumption that this is reversible, not irreversible computation, right? As long as it's reversible computation, you don't cost energy. So this actually says, with the current technology progress, we will soon or later, maybe in 10 years, reach this kind of a boundary, 1 kT. So then once you reach that, the only way of keep on improving computers is to do reversible computation. Now, then everybody knows about the reversible computation. There's one famous reversible computation method, which is quantum computing. So these quantum computers, they actually compute according to this Hamiltonian matrix. The quantum states changes. Now these Hamiltonians are reversible, and therefore you can do. Then the quantum computing essentially can be implemented in a reversible way. So this way that you can go below the von Neumann and the Landor limit of 1 kT, and you can keep on doing computation, improving the size and so on. Okay, so that's a sad story. Let's go back to our. We want to keep in track with our learning. Okay, so let's so this says that the information is physical. This is because of the von Neumann Landor law. So it says that reversible computation is free, and the irreversible computation is 1 unit per operation. So this is essentially saying that if you erase a bit, that's bad. That costs you 1 kT. If you don't erase a bit, that can be implemented. If you never do erasing, then you can implement some sort of a reversible computation to do all these computations. So I will not get into too much into this, but just believe me, this is possible. Okay. Charles Bennett has written a PhD thesis on that at MIT in the 1970s. Okay, so therefore let's now define. Friston, one of the well-known psychologists who is doing the human learning, mentioned that well, I mean, for human, it's important so you can measure the free energy between so it tries to minimize the free energy when it achieves learning, but his free energy is sort of complicated, right? I'm not going to get into that too much, but essentially let's define the energy. So the energy to convert free computing, the reversible computing, right? So let me use this U as universal computer and the U as universal computer. So the energy converting from X and Y and Y to X is the smallest number of bits, or you can say, we're computer scientists, we say programs. So smallest number, shortest, the program length, shortest program that converts from X to Y. Given X, you output Y. Given Y, you output X. So smallest energy that converts between X and Y. So that's it, right? So that we will use that as the energy needed. So this is in nature, right? The energy needed to convert between X and Y. So we will use that as the distance. Again, so the energy between X and Y is the smallest energy converting between X and Y. Some 30 years ago, we have proven the following theorem. So we showed that this energy actually is the maximum of Kolmogorov complexity of X condition Y, or Kolmogorov complexity Y condition X. So we published in this 1993 Stock conference, I think. So by the way, I think you probably know that we wrote this book on Kolmogorov complexity. So this is where the whole thing comes from. So the Kolmogorov complexity is so the shortest program that outputs X condition Y. The length of the shortest program computing length of the shortest program that computes that outputs X given input Y, and that KYX is the shortest program that computes Y given X for free. So these are two different quantities. For example, if X is nothing, Y is a long random string, and that one is just a 0. But the other case, KYX would be the length of Y, for example. Okay, so the proof of this, I don't think we have time to go into. So I will pass the proof. For anybody who is interested in the proof, contact me and I'll send you the paper. Send you a new paper that gives you a simple proof. The important thing for this EXY is that it is universal. It actually dominates all these other computable distance metrics in the following sense, that if you give me any computable D, there's always constant C, so that for all xy, EXY is less or equal to dxy plus C. So let me explain what this is. So now, so this, in a way, that this EXY is the optimal cognitive distance. It discovers all effective similarities. So in the sense that if somebody's distance metric D discovers similarity between X and Y, so will I. So let me give you a corollary of this theorem. So go back to my K-shot learning. We are done with K-shot learning theory. So my if you my EXY, if you use the universal metric E, which is KXY, KYX, then that is smaller than all M's. So for the 8 billion people, 8 billion of these X's, and if you use Brandon Lake and the company's science paper, so that can be the Bayesian model that can be replaced here, or the whatever models you can replace here. They are all Friston and so on, free energy. So they are all dominated by minorized by my EXY. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, so then this K-shot learning architecture can be designed as follows. So this thing, the unlabeled samples can be trained by a sort of a autoencoder or something, right? I mean, the in reality, in our brain, in our cerebral cortex, we have 6 layers of this kind of a neural network. So this can be sort of a, so we think this simulates some sort of variable autoencoder. You can use a variable autoencoder to model this kind of a neural network. So you can use a hierarchical variable autoencoder to model the unlabeled data to encode those guys. Then we'll use a VAE-based compressor to approximate. So this, by the way, this is just compression, right? I mean, so given some condition, you compress between X and Y. So you compute the Kolmogorov complexity between KXY and KYX, and you take the smaller one. So that essentially is this what this is about. So therefore, you can use a conditional VAE-based compressor to compress between X, Y. And that VAE-based compressor was designed by these people in one of the machine learning conferences. Okay, so that is our model now. So you pre-train VAE, then you compute all these. So this is, you have a pre-trained VAE model. Then you just do bit back sort of a energy computation between X and Y. Okay, so what was missing so what is the difference between this and the learning, the deep learning models, right? Actually, all learning models, pack learning, and so on, for example. So essentially, we know outcome trees are theorem. Outcome trees are sort of a principle, right? So essentially, all learning algorithm says that if you compress data, then you learn. So that's essentially what outcome trees are saying. And in pack learning, we have a theorem saying that as long as you pack learn, you have a short program and consistent with the data, you learn, pack learn. So that essentially is neural network too. So in neural network, essentially, if you have a CNN and you have all these things, essentially you compress the data into a few filters, right? If you so this is all the same. So they are all compressing data. But the human K-shot learning, actually today, what we're saying is that not only you need to do compression at the training stage, but also you need to do compression at the inference stage. That compression is our compressor to do one-shot learning to replace the compressor here to compute this function, energy function. Okay, so I have a theory, I have a model, I have something that's implemented the theory. So now let us look at experiments. So we look at the MNIST, K-MNIST, fashion MNIST. So this is sort of a image set, CFAR 10. So compared with all these more or less traditional or non-traditional models, and so with our model, so we are doing much better results. This even works for languages with text classification. So this is 5-shot text classification accuracy compared with all these neural networks. So we do much better. By the way, these are not pre-trained, so therefore so here we just did something very simple experiment that just used the compression, did not even use the VAE pre-training anything, just the direct application of compression. The Omniglow dataset, this is from Brandon Lake and company in Science. So this is one of the major K-shot learning models. So they in their case, they have 20 classes of handwritten characters and one-shot learning. So they use the Bayesian program learning. So essentially Bayesian program learning, so a Bayesian model, if you take a negative logarithm, that becomes a description length, that becomes our model too. So I mean, it's a subcase of our model, approximating. Now, so the importance is not really just saying that all these other models are special cases of our thing. The important reason to develop this model is that it is very, very useful. It's very, very useful, right? I mean, so this can be different people can approximate the model differently. For example, we also implemented some very, very simple approximation for using compression, right? Not using their algorithms. So we achieved already 90% accuracy for approximating characters. Now, certainly their theory, their program has 95%, right? I mean, so but that's not the point. The point is that different people can approximate our theory differently. I mean, an A student, like a BPL, can achieve 95%. And where like a B student, I mean, very simple approximation gives you 90%. well, another person can achieve 20%, 30%. So that's not a major problem, right? I mean, we don't. So the purpose is that we have a theory, and then when you meet we have a universal program. Not very universal, but it's generally universal program architecture that once you reach some sort of meet a problem in practice, you can right away use this theory and approximate the situation, and you don't have to fine tune all these parameters. There's no more parameter to tune. Then you're done. So you solve the problem. So this way it unifies many different approaches for parameter-free and type of clustering algorithms. So this one is about a chain letter. This one is the clustering species. This one is clustering all these. So Kioff and company, the time series signals. So they are saying that this kind of compression approach is better than all these other 51 methods published in the CKIDS and all these company conferences. So all these results are pre-deep learning results, anomaly detection, music classification, and metabolic network, and essentially evolution of patterns, and so on. Okay, so that shows our theory can be very easily unifying previous work and easily applied to many applications. So I have probably 10 minutes. So let me try to discuss another concept of consciousness. Certainly, this is something that we are all very interested in. So human consciousness or animal consciousness. So our K-shot learning simply says that if you compress, that's it, right? So we propose that in a human mind, so you just have a compressor. If you have a compressor, you sort of a K-shot learn, and you do everything nicely. Okay, now or you approximate compression, right? I mean, some ways. But then that right away gives you a subconsciousness binary classifier of interestingness. So essentially, if you compress something that's interesting, right? I mean, you find out certain enemy or art, or compressing some art, and and maybe a number, mathematics. So you discovered that for such a long random sequence, it's really just a pi computable by a small formula. And certain other things are not interesting, right? I mean, so if you, I mean, something can be trivially compressed, nothing. Something that the molecules in a room that also not compressible, this is random. So I mean, okay, no regularities, and these kind of signals with no regularities. Okay, so what this says is that the non-trivial compression actually implies attention, right? I mean, so these are non-trivial compression, and then we start to appreciate the simplicity of this art, or simplicity of science, or maybe run away from the animal, discovering the danger that's closing. So therefore it is. It needs attention, right? I mean, so it alarms us. So this way, over the years, or the billions of, I mean, not billions, millions of years, so we start to pay attention to something that's very simple. If it is compressible, Now, if it's non-trivially compressible, it is important. It is interesting. It needs our attention. So that's why we like music, we like arts, we like science and games, by the way, because these things are sort of all trivially compressible. Not trivially, these are not trivially compressible. These are compressible, interestingly compressible. So this is something Charles Bennett calls logical depth. Now the question is, do animals have conscious? Right? I mean, I don't want to start to answer questions on what is consciousness, but let's look at the question: what do animals have conscious? Well, the trouble with this question is that we do not really know what animals feel, right? I mean, so this is some sort of Chinese. I did not want to translate into English because the Chinese is so nice here. but really, this is a famous philosopher Zhuangzi in China in 2,300 years ago. So he says the following. So he once saw a fish jumping out of the water. So he says, "Oh, the fish is happy." But then his friend, who is a student, says, "Well, you are not a fish. How do you know a fish is happy?" This is actually not alone. They are not alone. So Thomas Nagel, also wrote a book, and he also said this. So he says, "Well, we'll never know if a bat is conscious because we are not bats. So how do you know bats knows anything, right? I mean, so we're not bats. So the trouble is that we do not know what they feel, and how do we know that they have conscious or not, right? So therefore, I think what we propose here is to convert the question of how an animal feels to a question what an animal can do. So the K-shot learning essentially is a matter of labeling data. So if you're able to label the data, then you are able to learn, then you must have this. If you are not able to learn the data, label the data, then you cannot learn, then you probably don't have this kind of a concept. Okay, so that's the logic. So also, we know that both learning and conscious are located at the same place. Actually, they're not far away. They're both located in the cerebral cortex. So maybe we think. I thought this is just for discussion, right? So some conscious may be K-shot learned concepts. So now, if some consciousness So if some consciousness is K-shot learned, for example, concept of my wife, concept of political concept of peace and war. What is love? So these kind of concepts probably can be learned, right? So if some of these things are learned, then these kind of consciousness will be decided by the ability of labeling data. So let us give some examples of data revolution caused by data labeling. For example, ImageNet caused the labeling of the ImageNet has caused the revolution in deep learning. We all know that. So in biology, species labeling has resolved the Darwin theory, obviously. Chemistry, periodical data, periodical table has enabled us to search for the other elements and promoted the whole chemistry, some subfield of chemistry. Kepler's law and Tycho's Braha's data has we know that has calculated all the stars, their path, the tracks. In politics, this is actually very interesting too. So the definition of social classes has caused a lot of politics, fight, war. also races, right? I mean, so this is all the sort of a labeling, data labeling that has caused the trouble. Mathematics, so this is our field. I mean, so labeling the variables has created the algebra. Okay, now so if consciousness is k-shot learned, then the concept of the more consciousness will have to depend on the labeling ability. And so now we are asking not what, so we don't ask what they feel, we ask what they can do. So let me actually give you an example that this is not easy. Labeling data is actually very difficult. It requires you to have different abilities. So for example, displaced reference ability. Let's see a video.
They pretended to be predators by draping themselves with giant sheets and crawling along the forest floor. One sheet was covered in a tiger stripe pattern. One had a pattern of abstract colors. One was white with multicolored spots, and the last was a plain white sheet. Once the predator was spotted by an orangutan, the researcher would stop for 2 minutes before moving out of sight. Surprisingly, the orangutans would wait several minutes before letting out a warning call. They did this in 12 of the 24 trials, with an average delay of 7 minutes. So why the wait? Sumatran orangutans have the longest child-rearing period of any primate. Infant orangutans stay with their mothers for up to 9 years, which allows them to develop critical forest survival skills. Letting out a warning call at the first sight of a predator is just too dangerous, because it might alert the predator to their presence. But at the same time, the parent needs to teach the infant to recognize these situations in the future. So the mothers wait. Long enough that the danger has passed, but short enough that the infant can still learn from the encounter. Researchers say this clearly demonstrates the ability to use displaced reference in a non-human primate, something never seen before in the wild. And that suggests another way that
orangutans, so they are very similar to human, right? So this is what in genetically they are maybe 99% similar to us. So they are only one of the I think probably the only species that are able to do displaced reference. Now, I think some crows can do that too, but let's focus on orangutans. So okay, now the concept sometimes requires a displaced reference in the sense of personality. You have to, if somebody else is hungry, then you have to think that the guy is hungry, not me, the guy, and did not eat for a long time. So therefore, he must be hungry. He must be, I don't know, starved and is going to die, and so on. So and painful and so on. So these kind of concepts require a displaced reference. Not many animals have such abilities. So therefore, my point is that if you are able to do certain kind of data labeling, then you are able to have more conscious. So such a proposal actually can be must be falsifiable, right? I mean, so Karl Popper said that if you have a theory, the theory must have boundaries. So outside boundary, you can falsify the theory. The inside boundary, you can prove its theory. So at least let me propose some sort of a method that the theory can be falsified. So now we can, if we can, so for example, we can if we can depend on a machine to help a monkey to label the data, then to increase the monkey's consciousness, then this will prove part of my theory, right? So let's look at this kind of experiment of Tesla.
trained via more than 2,000 electrodes, each one about 1/20th the width of a human hair, and implanted in the regions of his brain that control hand and arm movement. Each time the monkey moves his hand left or right, that movement begins as an electrical signal in his brain, an impulse that eventually sends the message down his arm to move his hand. But the Neuralink implants read these signals while they're still inside the brain, before the monkey has even moved, when the movements are still just intentions. The chips are connected via Bluetooth to a computer that reads the brain signals in real time and matches them to the monkey's hand movements. And here's the wild part. When the team disconnects the joystick, the computer can still predict where the monkey is going to move his hand. No joystick required.
After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Pages still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. He's controlling the cursor entirely with decoded neural activity.
Eventually, the monkey wasn't even using the joystick anymore. He was playing a game of Pong, just using his mind.
So it's not so much of the game. So what I'm using this example to show that it is probably possible to label data for the monkey and make sure that the monkey learns certain concepts to increase its consciousness. Okay, so let me, this is the end of my lecture, and I'm running out of time too. So let me summarize. So first of all, from a law of thermodynamics, I actually have derived the theory of K-shot learning. That theory covers all possible learning theories for K-shot learning, and implemented with a deep learning VAE framework, and demonstrated that it works well. So what is missing in the current deep learning model? So really, I mentioned in the beginning, at some point already. So essentially, in principle, we know that compression in the deep learning model, the compression happens in a training stage. So then this new theory of K-shot learning says compression also happens at inference stage. By the way, this is not the new invention. For example, Brandon Lake and so on also have done, already has done these kind of compression at the inference stage. It's just a consequence from the theory. So then we also have proved that everybody approximated our model, including this includes machine and human and animals. Nobody escapes this. So therefore, if anybody proposes a new K-shot learning theory, and it's going to be approximating our model, of course. And we try to understand what conscious is. And so this way, if consciousness is learned, then can the machines do that too? That leaves a question to our to everybody. Okay, so these are my collaborators. I'm grateful to their collaboration. Yeah, thank you very much. That's the end. That's the end of my talk.
All right, thank you very much for the very interesting talk. So we'll now open the floor for questions. So please feel free to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat window. I can read it out.
Yeah, Professor Lee, thank you very much for the great talk. Really fundamental and inspiring. So I have two questions here. The first is that, do we have any evidence indicating the human capability is learnable? I mean, the M is computable. I mean, that's the sort of like assumption for the whole framework, right?
Yes. So that's also the trick of the whole framework. So my E is the smallest metric that's not computable. But all the human metric M, that's I assume that they are computable. As you mentioned that if this assumption is not true, then my theory doesn't work.
No, what I mean is that is there any evidence suggesting in some kind of constrained scenarios it is computable?
Well, that's the Turing Church thesis, right? We are computable.
Okay.
So nobody knows. I think it's just generally believed.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
The second question is that we also assume some kind of like a pre-trained knowledge, right? That's the condition that you can use to compute the recognition.
Yes.
Right. So I'm thinking, maybe just naive thinking, is that is the size of these pre-trained or computed models matter or not?
Yeah, it matters. Yes, thank you. That's a very good question. I think this is something I should have mentioned. We are doing the experiments with low resource languages and trying to show that, well, so essentially the way is this, right? I mean, if you have a lot of pre-computing, like pre-training, then you don't need any more compression, because, for example, if you have GPT-3, then you just have one-shot learning and K-shot learning or whatever, because you have all the data already, you have all the training. However, if you don't have that much resources, then you must do our type of stuff, because you don't have lots of these messages stored. So we believe that for the human learning, animal learning, certainly you don't have all sorts of that much pre-training. So if you don't have that much pre-training, then you need this kind of compression afterwards during the inference stage. To prove this, certainly we are working on the. I think this is already I did not put on this already. There are some results. So if you have low resource languages, and if you do, then you don't have a lot of resources. For example, if you have something like I don't know, Turkish, or maybe some language from some other low resource languages, then you will be able to then our stuff will be very useful.
Yeah, because your talk really inspires me to think about two things. The first is, suppose for this M, we can categorize M into different classes from simple to more difficult. Okay, suppose we do that. I don't know how to do that. Then for the same M, if I need different size of the pre-trained models, then that will give me some indicators about the difficulty of a task.
Right.
This is the first thinking. The second thinking is that whether there could be a trade-off, a controllable trade-off between this M and the size of the prime, essentially the preconditions.
Certainly, I think these are all wonderful questions. We have not we have not had time to deal with this. We are working on the low resource M pre-training, showing so even I think even with a bird. We are at some time we just do for some tasks we can even eat the bird even with high resources, but for certain tasks, of course, just the language, the classification tasks. But I think the main focus should be on low resource. So when you don't have much pre-training, so as you mentioned, that we can sort of classify some sort of a trade-off to study some certain trade-off in how much data is needed for pre-training. Before you don't need any K-sharp learning by the end anymore, so you don't need any compression on the other end. So it's just two ends, right? Either you compress on the training or you compress on the inference. So essentially, training a neural network is compression on the training side. Now, if you don't compress enough, then on the inference side, you'd better compress a little bit more to achieve better classification. So that's essentially the point that I've been. So this is your suggestion too. So sort of a trade-off between these two things. So the boundary is not very clear, and it would be very interesting to study such a trade-off.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jian.
Great. Do we have any other questions from the audience?
There is one question. Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, Professor Li, thanks for the great talk. You just mentioned GPT-3. So concerning all these large pre-trained models, there is opinion about for computers, since they are given their resources, memories, computing powers. One way to advance our research is just make it bigger and bigger. So why do we care about to compress these big models? Why do we care about to explain these big models? Since these explainable or compression is only for us, for our humans, because we cannot handle with all these informations. So I would like to know, how do you comment on such kind of opinion?
Oh, is it Charles?
This is Zhiying Jiang from China, from Shenzhen now.
Oh, hi, Zhiying. Thanks. I don't. So human certainly don't do GPT-3 training. So it's too much. None of us is going to be able to train that on that much data. I think people have studied in deep learning community. So each person is probably over the lifetime trained on maybe 8 million characters, something like that. I forgot the number, right? I mean, there's a small number that everybody can ever see. We'll never see even very small fraction of this GPT-3. It does cause a lot of well, so you mentioned whether this is useful. Certainly, it's useful. It's just that I mean, deep learning and human learning, they are on different tracks, right? I mean, so you need deep learning to accomplish a lot of tasks that human cannot do, right? I mean, human certainly cannot compute faster than a computer, and the computer can do lots of things. So here we are just modeling human. So human can do a lot of other things. So we want the computer to be sometimes like human, to be able to learn certain things very, very fast. So then for example, to help replace human to do some daily type of routines. So therefore, these kind of two things are both important, I think.
Sorry, Professor Li. Let me maybe rephrase my question. So here I would like to understand, is there any real mandate to make computer like us? Because they have definitely their own way to develop their intelligence. So is there any mandate for them to be like us, to compress, to explainable?
Well, so there are two aspects of this question. One is to understand what we are, right? I mean, to what we do, how we learn. So this is just a science. It's really not for any practical purposes. This is for the purpose of science and understanding. So from that perspective, this is important. From a more practical way, certainly it's also important in the way that in many situations you simply don't have a lot of data to train, so you just have to do one-shot K-shot learning. So let me give you one example. So I do the protein sequencing, right? So when you do this protein sequencing, we train a model, a deep learning model, deep novel, for example, to learn to do sequencing, right? To do peptide sequencing from tandem MS data. However, to learn to train this kind of a model, this is okay when the model protein sequences are made of 20 amino acids. So now if the protein sequences are simply made of 20 amino acids without any change, this model works perfectly. Works very well. However, the proteins have changes. They have something called post-translation modifications. So now if these modifications happen, there are several hundred modifications. So when these modifications happen, my de novo sequencing algorithm does not work anymore because we don't have training data, right? So there are 500 of modifications. I cannot just collect like I don't know, a million data pairs of training data to train for each model. That's just impossible. For these kind of cases, you just have to find some other ways to do one-shot learning or K-shot learning to allow the users to say, well, I have this modification. I give you one example. Please do it.
Thank you, Professor Li.
Yeah.
I think I see. I really agree with you in the first reason. For science, I think it's very important to understand. For practical purpose, I think a normal approach is you pre-train a big model and you fine-tune it. Then you don't need that much data to fine-tune.
Yes, that works for languages, but not for many other situations.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
So for example, we even for languages, what about the low resource languages? We actually, so for example, if you have something like a language in Tibetan languages, now even you use a huge GPT-3, the per BERT model, you still you still have to train local languages, right? That's not enough. No, there's no data.
Yes, I think it's really important to understand how people can do this.
Yes.
And try to learn that ability and then apply this ability to computer to make it better, maybe in that sense.
Yes, right. So that's what I'm trying to say. That this ability is essentially a way of compressing data.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Please feel free.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Professor Linda. This is Zhang Li from Howard University, and thanks for the talk. I'm not sure whether this question is naive or not, but so assuming people are doing K-shot learning, but slightly like, so you have an example saying that okay, so mom tell us that okay, this something is edible. Is that the only information that we are processing in order to make the conclusion that the other similar things are edible? I mean, what are the preliminary data that we have to leverage to make that decision? I mean, is any consideration on that?
Yes, I think that's all very reasonable questions. Well, in order to develop a theory, I cannot consider too many things. So I put everything as Y1 to Yn as unlabeled data. So certainly, so learning is a continuous, right? So you probably have already learned other concepts For example, so rather than just this isolated concept, so many things are related. So really the theory should be more generalized, saying that you have seen already a lot of unlabeled samples, and you also have seen a lot of labeled samples. Then you are trying to learn some sort of irrelevant a new labeled sample, a new class. So these things and also these things should be have distributions. Some are important, some are not important. I mean, some are too small to eat, some are too large to eat, some do not taste very well, and so on. But to develop a theory, you need to be simple in the beginning. Then this can be generalized.
I understand that. Just that then how like what's the correlation between like the set of Y, the unlabeled data, and then the labeled data? I mean, is that
yeah.
Like, do you have a way to to formulate that, or I mean, is that part of the theory or no?
Yeah, at this point, I don't formulate those things. All I said was okay. All we said was that this Y is going to be formulated, pre-trained into the VAE, the autoencoder. This is for the image. I don't even know how to do that for language. At least we have not done that. So then you do compression. So in a theory, all we do is to formulate that Y into some sort of a model. That's it. But as far as really, I mean, that Y, the set of unlabeled data can be, or doesn't have to be related to the labeled concepts.
I mean, the thing is that even you say related or unrelated, you don't actually know whether it will be related or not, right?
No, we don't. So we don't assume that.
So that basically means like I guess maybe that's related to one of the questions that Dr. Pater asked before. Like, so if you have, suppose you have the set of unlabeled data is infinitely large, then I guess there.
Yes, that defeats. Yes, right. Then you become GPT-3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
then this model becomes useless. Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So then the so that the set of the unlabeled really matters. Does that mean that's
right? That's right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is essentially essentially that's a reality, right? I mean, if this unlabeled data, you can infinitely use this, increase this unlabeled condition, then really there's nothing left to do. You understand everything.
Right. So then meaning that how much learning needs to be done basically is a function of the set of Y. We keep
right. I don't know how to limit Y. At this point, all I say is, well, okay, you have a small set of Y, and it's not too big. But I mean, we don't want GPT-3 type of data.
Okay, how then? Like, do you have any approximate approximate idea of how big is big for Y and how small is small?
No, I don't. To be honest, so at this point we did this train some images, right? I mean, so these image training used certain data sets. Those are small, right? I mean, so those are CFAR10 and so on, not big, unlabeled. But the GPT is really too big.
Yeah, I know GPT has like a few billion.
Billions.
Yeah.
Actually, so even for certain, so this is really depending on depending on the situation. For different applications. For example, for this kind of news sort of a classification, category classification, we sometimes even beat the BERT model with lots of pre-training. So that depends on the tasks.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe the unlabeled data has just happened to have the things that is needed for the training, and then that could be the reason for the model that beats the BERT model. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, but in any case, so the whole point of this is to deal with low resource training. For example, there's lots of languages in the world that are low resources. I mean, so how to so in one of the major questions in AI is to do low resource.
When you say low resources, does that include the set of Y or no?
Yes, resource is Y.
The resource is Y. Okay.
Yeah.
So like so if it's like, if assuming that the model is right, so could that mean that like for human, the set of Y is much larger than that of animal?
Yes, of course. Well, I mean, it depends, right? If the animals sees a lot of stuff, if you do image processing, who knows? The ego is high, can see more than what we see.
And the final question, like, are the results that you presented, are they online on your website?
No, I mean, it's a new paper that we have written up, and for some time now already. It's not anywhere, but it will be released very soon.
Okay, I'll look forward to reading that.
Thanks. I'll make sure to send send some copies. Make something available.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, great. So we have one question from chat. So here, so this is from Frederick Guo. So hi, Professor Lee. Thank you for so much for the inspiring talk. So this question is about anomaly detection. Should we consider text-based, language-based detection? If so, could you elaborate a bit more on the use cases on this? For example, wrong syntax or different mood, different tones?
Oh, yeah, I don't, thanks for the question. I guess in my slides, I did have one of the things on anomaly detection, but those are on images, not on languages. For languages, I don't know. Okay, should we consider language-based, text-based detection? If so, could you elaborate a little bit? I don't have an answer for this. From my perspective, if you do some pre-training on the languages and give one example on what is not normal, what is then probably this is very similar to this kind of a classification. I think this can work, but it's not that simple, right? Because there are lots of, you have to deal with these similar texts that you have to understand what is similar, what is not. So this is not, I don't think it's easy. I don't know. The compression test technique in this case needs to be carefully designed.
Thank you, Professor. So the questions came from me. So, yeah. So in your talk, I see when you mentioned non-normalized detection, I was thinking that's easy to understand. If we're talking about numerical range, then we easily understand when it's out of range, then it's a normalized, something like that. But just try to understand a little bit better about the whether you also cover the language thing. Yeah, so this is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that thing is not my work. This is I think it's somebody else's work. This was just I think they are doing some sort of they are monitoring this person's hand, and by some sort of a curve, the time series. So then they compute the anomaly time series. I think that's what they do. So therefore, it's sort of a compression, the time series compression. But these are not even image processing. This is just I think they have signals on hand, so they convert this into a time series.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So if you do language processing, I think that will be much more difficult. I think anomaly detection, I'm in Beijing, and so I think there's a lot of anomaly detection on the internet. They control you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so really great discussion. I guess we're also about time today, and thank you so much, Professor Li, for giving us a talk today. I guess let's send a round of virtual applause, and because this is online. So like I mentioned earlier, this is the last talk for the fall semester, and we will be keep posting new talks announcement in our website. And I just sent the address to the chat. So that's about it. And thanks everyone for coming, and thanks again, Professor Li, for joining us. So hope to see you next year. Happy holidays in advance, everybody. And
yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.